Hey, North Point, I want us to think about us being Christ in the community. If you go back to the Old Testament, God told his people Israel, you take care of the vulnerable. The widow, the orphan, they don't have anybody to look out for them. People can take advantage of them. You watch out for them. He told the farmers, you glean your field. What's that mean? You don't harvest all the way. You intentionally leave crops on the edge so the poor have something to eat. Well, it shouldn't surprise us then when Jesus came to earth, he reflected those values. He kept reaching out, much to the chagrin of the religious leaders, to the vulnerable, to the people on the margins, the sinners, the prostitutes. But maybe if there's one group Jesus reached out to that was totally confounding, it was the tax collectors. These are people their love of money had sold out their fellow citizens and were working for Rome. Even though Rome was occupying Israel, they were working for them, collecting taxes. And yet Jesus kept reaching out to them. In fact, Matthew, who wrote our first gospel, was a tax collector. Well, there's an incident recorded in Luke 19, 1-10, where Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem to die, and he's going through Jericho, and there's a big crowd, and Zacchaeus climbs a tree, and Jesus looks up to him and says, Zacchaeus, come down. I must stay with you. Now, I'm sure there were religious leaders and scribes and Pharisees, and of all the people Jesus must stay with, it was a tax collector? My point is this, that as people who represent God, who want to be Christ in our community, we need to take on that value. We need to care about the vulnerable. This past week, there was a shooting in Atlanta. And this shooting reminds us that for the past year, the Asian Americans have been vulnerable. The coronavirus came out of China. And so many have blamed anybody who is of Asian descent. Never mind that if you're from Japan or Korea or Thailand, or you weren't even from China, and if you're from China, you've probably been here multiple generations. It had nothing to do with it. But these people have been targeted. It's our job as the church who represent Jesus to recognize the vulnerable, to be intentional about seeing them. So this week, these next weeks, I want to remind us, what can we do to care for the vulnerable? Particularly, what can we do to care for Asian Americans who have been targeted? My prayer is that we truly are Christ in the community and living out God's values of caring for the vulnerable.